Welcome to the Longest Turn Board Gaming Podcast. This is episode 57, Reiner Knizia. My name is Tyler.
Hello, this is Kevin.
This is Tyson.
In this episode, we're going to talk about Reiner Knizia, the good doctor. We're going to talk about a bunch of his games, and then the highlight of the episode, we've got an interview with Reiner.
It was awesome.
It was. He was so generous to talk to us.
Yeah, he's designed a few games.
Yeah, he's got a few out there.
He's got a few. It was funny. Well, we'll hear it in the interview, but I said, as long as I've done my research right, you've designed about 700 games. And he's like, no, actually, it's 800. I'm like, I was only off by 100.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you need to do better research.
Yeah, right. Well, you need. So we got a lot of good games to talk about. I'm excited.
We got Tyson back in the studio.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
It has been.
I have been unfortunately occupied with a lot of other stuff in my life. Had a potential career change going on that I'm working towards. But outside of that, I haven't been able to play nearly as much games with you guys because I've been busy with that stuff. So it's been a while, but I'm super happy to be back, and I'm excited you guys got to interview so many people in my absence. I noticed that there were a number of very talented and wonderful people who got to sit in my seat, to include Matt.
Matt was here.
And Dan.
Yep, Dan.
And you got Juma El Juju, because, how is that not a...
That's amazing.
You could take him over me any day. That interview was fantastic, by the way, and I was glad that I got to sit back and listen to a couple of episodes.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun talking to Juma.
It was great.
But you're irreplaceable, Tyson. We're glad you're back.
I will say...
It is good to we'll have our dynamic back.
Well, and I was going to say, Tyler even mentioned on one of the previous episodes that transitions were hard for you guys. But guess what? This episode should be very easy for transitions, because all you have to do is say, speaking of Dr. Reiner Knizia.
That's right. That's right. It's a no-brainer. I probably will still screw him up somehow, but that's fine. That's fine.
I want to talk about Dune.
Do we have to?
Yeah.
Why can't
the
we?
movie?
Oh, we can.
Movie?
And the popcorn pail.
Popcorn pail.
I'd rather not.
I would rather not.
Did you
either.
see it, Tyson?
Yeah. I was the one
You want to stick your hand in that on purpose?
Yeah, why not? That's awesome.
I want to know. I was the one who wanted to know how this got through so many series of people, to include quality testers, to include marketers, to include everybody, and yet they came out with a popcorn bucket that looks like the way it does. This is a podcast, so our listeners can't really appreciate how terrifying this thing is, but go look it up if you haven't seen this popcorn bucket. It's awful.
It's kind of awesome. And it was only like $25. And
we used two different words there. Mine was the right one.
So we went up. I went and saw the movie with my wife, and it was fantastic. Epic movie, strayed a little more from the book than the first movie did. I didn't love some of those changes, but I get it. And it was still epic, fantastic, amazing. We go up to the counter and order large popcorn and a large drink, that combo for this amazing deal of $19, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
amazing.
Yeah, yay inflation. And so then the girl was like, well, do you want the popcorn bucket with the Dune bucket? We're like, sure, we'll get it. It took it up to $34. So really it was only $15 more than what we were going to spend on our already popcorn. And we didn't put popcorn. Do you ever put popcorn in your actual pails?
Oh, yeah.
You do?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I buy them.
Oh, and then you
we
use them for family movie night.
Yeah, we just watched a movie with the family on Friday, and all the kids go down and pick out their popcorn bucket. Some of them are easier to clean than others. I can imagine the sandworm is pretty difficult to get all the nooks and crannies.
With the teeth and the everything.
Well, I can hide money and stuff in there. Nobody's going to reach in there and grab it. Yeah. I can leave anything in there. Nobody's going to touch it. I can hide my candy stash, my caramel Dove chocolates.
You could hide popcorn in there and nobody will eat it. Yeah.
I think it's cool. And I'm
That's
happy
awesome.
that I got it. And the movie was great.
You're happy.
So
No,
I
that's
asked
cool.
if what I meant was, had you seen the movie yet?
No, I've been eagerly wanting to, but again, if I haven't had time for board games, I have unfortunately had no times to go to the movie theater either. But it's one that I'm trying to find a time to make the time to go see, but my wife's never going to go see it with me, and even if she were, we'd have to get a babysitter and everything to take care of that, and I just don't think this is one of those movies that she'll want to go do that with me with. So I've got to figure out how to watch it.
Yeah.
But
it was awesome.
I have to know
It's epic.
talking babies. And I know I don't want spoilers, so I have to know. I got to go see it.
It's epic. I do have issues with it. It's not, in my opinion, the greatest thing since Lord of the Rings. It's not, but it's a good movie.
The first one was great, and I really liked it, so I'd like to see how it ties it all together.
Kevin's fallen asleep. He hasn't bought.
Are you guys done yet?
He hasn't taken any spice.
No, I mean,
he'd need to take
I
some.
like the first movie. I mean, not reading. We've talked about this before. Not reading the books. I'm like, okay.
You love Duncan, Idaho.
That's how it ended. And there's a guy named Duncan, Idaho. So that's my impression of the first movie. It was cool, but it's like, okay, this is half a story, and I'm like, whatever. So I will watch I'll watch the second movie for sure, but I probably won't see it in the theaters. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I did recently that I was excited about. Was
awesome.
Saw the movie, had a nice afternoon date with my wife, and
nice.
Other than that, been playing board games, editing podcasts, and trying to stay afloat at work. So
I was going to say, you have a day job, right? Like
yes,
that's in
I
there
do.
somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's been a little busy for the longest term the last couple of weeks. So.
Yeah, it's been really busy. It's been good. All good stuff, though.
Yes, absolutely.
For sure. All good stuff.
Well, should we get into some Knizia games?
Let's do it.
Yeah, so Reiner Knizia, we've all played a lot of Reiner Knizia games, but there's one Reiner Knizia game that has been out for a long time that I hadn't played until very recently. Ingenious is what I'm talking about. This is a game that came out in 2004. It's published by Cosmos. And obviously, as we're talking about all these games, they're all designed by Reiner Knizia. This is a game that reminds me in a lot of ways of games like Mahjong or Dominoes, a tile-laying style of game, or Blockus, however you say that one. It's where you're putting tiles on a gridded board and trying to connect patterns. So every tile is a 2 hexagonal spaced tile. So you draw 6 of these from your bag at the start of the game, and each of them have 1 or 2 symbols on them. It can have a symbol like in different colors. They'll have like yellow and red and blue and green, and there'll be stars and circles and different shapes like that. So just random geometric shapes and colors on there. And essentially what you're trying to do is you place a tile down, and it's going to score you a number of points for the symbol that it connects with. It doesn't score the actual tile itself that it's touching, but everything that it touches to, it will do within the 5 cardinal directions of that hexagon. And so essentially what you're trying to do is every turn you're going to take a tile, place it on the board, score a certain amount of points, and then it'll go around. The catch here is that everybody is trying to move all of the symbols. There's tracks on a player board that you have, and everybody's trying to move these symbols all the way to the end of the track, because at the end of the game, you're going to score what is the lowest value of on your board. So if, for example, I have the red star at a value 7, but all of my other symbols are all the way up to 18, which is the highest that it can go, at the end of the game, I'm going to only score 7 points. So really, you're trying to equally move all of these things along, and it gets really kind of tight because everybody else is trying to block off certain things. When we played this one, I had the unfortunate experience of getting blocked out of purple circles very early on in this game.
Purple was tough to come by.
And I had not advanced that very far, and I kept trying to make purple happen on the board, and it kept getting blocked off. So it was a little bit of a interesting experience for me. I think there's a lot of potential to this game, and I really enjoyed it. I don't know that it's my favorite Knizia game, part of which, and I need more plays of this to really understand. And Kevin, I know you've played this a lot more than I have, so you'd have to comment on whether or not you feel this is true. But to me, I wonder, is in this game, do you feel like it's a certain point in the game people can start to see, oh, clearly the winner's going to be that person, or does it tend to end fairly close in points usually?
I think it ends really close almost every time I play. You can see, and that's part of the strategy. You can see who's lowest in a certain color.
And what spots are still available.
Yep, and what spots are still available. You can purposefully try to block off areas. But in this last game we played, I think everybody was really close. We were within 1 point, right?
It really was, yeah.
So, I think I don't see a runaway leader problem in this one, at least in the games that I played. And I've been playing it quite a bit. I think I originally got this game in 2006, so it's been a long time.
I think it's interesting too. If you tie for the lowest, then it goes to your next lowest one, and that's the tiebreaker, and could go all the way up to your fourth or fifth one potentially. I don't know how often that happens, but I think that's also part of the consideration when it comes down to the end. Like, oh, I can tie with Tyson, and my next one's going to win it for me. So
Yeah, and I remember this mechanic has been used in other games, but this was the first time I had experienced with this mechanic, and it blew my mind. I hadn't played any games that were even remotely like this. Like, my experience up to that point was, playing Monopoly or Sequence or, something like that. And this was like a new, fresh thing that I'm like, holy cow, this is amazing. There's so many things to think about with a game that has such a simple rule set. It's like you're looking and paying attention to what everybody else is doing and then trying to block off certain areas of the board. And I vividly remember playing it for the first time going, wow, this is so cool.
Yeah.
And we played it just a ton when we got it. It was
and
great.
that's what I was going to say is that there is a lot of decisions in a small amount of rules overhead, right? And I could see this being a really good, I could see my wife actually really enjoying this game because it's casual enough that you can also be focusing on other stuff. Like, she likes to watch a movie while we play games, when we play games. And I don't love that, but this game I feel like you could have, it's casual enough that you could do something like that, but it's also depthy enough that you can just focus solely on the game, and there's a lot of decisions and choices that you end up getting to make. So I think it's a good medium.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty common with a lot of Reiner Knizia games, right?
It's going to be a common theme. Yeah.
He does an excellent job of balancing small rule sets, but with lots of good decisions and good gameplay.
Yeah, so this one's easy enough. I've played it with my 10-year-old last year. I introduced it to her, and she picked it up no problem. And I think, if you've got an 8-year-old, 7, maybe even 6-year-old, it's not a tough game, but it can be meaty enough for gamers to really dig their teeth into as well. So I think it's great. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, for a first experience to this one, I look forward to another chance to play this one because I think it only has upwards to go, and the more you play it, the more you see, I think. So yeah, that's Ingenious.
So I've got another Reiner Knizia game to talk about, right? So this one is called Babylonia. This one is published by Ludanova, obviously designed by Reiner Knizia. Came out in 2019. So Babylonia, it's a tile laying game. So the way this game works is you have a bunch of tokens. These are clan tokens. There's nobles. There's 3 different types of nobles. There's farmers. There are tiles that you put on the board that are city tiles. So there's crop fields. And there's a board of the Tigris and Euphrates. Okay. And there's a bunch of hexes on this board. So you put the tiles out on the board, depending on the number of players. If you're playing with a lower player count, you block off certain parts of the board so it scales well to player count. You put cities out, you put crop fields out, and then everybody takes a number of these clan tokens. Okay. On your turn, you have, and then there's also these ziggurats is what they're called that are out on the board as well. So on your turn, it's super simple. You take either 2 clan tokens, so any of the 2 tokens you have on your board, and you place them in an available spot on the board, or you take 3 or more farmers from your tokens and place those out on the board. What you're trying to do is you're trying to surround cities and surround these ziggurats. When you surround a city, then that city then scores, okay? And you're trying to link whatever symbol is on that city with your network of tiles that you've built up. So if you have a priest, for example, the symbol for a priest is this star thing. If you surround a city that has the star, then all of your priests will then score that are in your network. Sometimes on these cities, there's 2 different noble symbols, and you're going to score for both of those. So the whole goal of the game and what you're trying to do is just make this huge connection, surround cities, have the majority of your nobles around a city, because if you do, you get that city and get a certain amount of points. And also surround these ziggurats. You get points for surrounding ziggurats, and then you also get ziggurat cards, which gives you certain advantages and things that you can do throughout the game. That's pretty much it. It's really a straightforward game. It's area control. You're trying to connect to different cities, surround cities, and then whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. Tyler and I got this played, I don't know, about a week ago.
Yeah.
And it plays super quick.
Yeah, we were, well, at 2-player especially it does. We were about 10 minutes into it, and I was like, this game's going to last like another 6 or 7 minutes. I mean, we were playing pretty quick, and it just goes fast.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Really enjoyable. I had a great time. You just destroyed me.
Yeah.
But it was fun, and I enjoyed it, and it's a nice production.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it looks really cool. It's the discs I think are well done.
Yeah.
Right. It looks like awesome once you get your network built out. You know, the colors are bright and vibrant, and I think it's a really well done game. I didn't mention that there's crops. You know, you can send your farmers to crops, and you get a bunch of points that way. So there's multiple paths to victory, I think, that you can explore. It's not I wouldn't say it's a super deep game, but I think it's an enjoyable game, and it's a game that I'd like to get out and play a little bit more.
Isn't this one like a spiritual successor in some ways to Tigris and Euphrates?
I didn't get that feel from it.
Because I was under the impression, maybe there's a third one, but I know that you've got Tigris and Euphrates, you've got Yellow and Yangtze, and then...
The third one's Huang.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't get Tigris and Euphrates vibes from this.
Is it simpler than Tigris and Euphrates? And
yes, I think so. I would like to try it at higher player count, 3 or 4 players, just see if it still plays as quick as it did.
Right.
And just to experience it with more than 2 players. I had fun at 2-player.
Yeah.
I think its sweet spot's going to be at 3 or 4.
Yeah, I've played at 3, and I think it plays better at 3. I haven't played at 4 yet. Majority of my plays have been at 2-player, though. And I like that it's how quick it is.
Yep.
But I think as you get more competition for the cities with more players, it gets a little bit more interesting, I think.
Yeah.
And the board's going to fill up. And the board does get bigger as you play with more players, but there's still going to be more competition, right?
Well,
because you're not going to want somebody to get complete access to one city. There's going to be more people that jump in there.
Yeah, and in a 2-player game, it's up to you alone to break up your opponent's network.
Yep,
right?
Exactly. I do think it's interesting. The ziggurats are cool, right? Because it gives you a bonus when you get surround a ziggurat and you have the majority. Like you can take an immediate turn right after the turn you played. That can be huge, right, for scoring a city and kind of surprising your opponent, you know?
Yeah.
That's awesome. You had the one that gives you 7.
Yeah, and I was kind of
5.
laughing about that because if I would have known the game was going to end so much quicker than I thought, I don't know that I would have taken that one, but it allowed me to have extra tiles to choose from on my turn, which was powerful.
Yeah.
But
probably too late in the game to be super beneficial for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like it. It's a really nice production. It's cool to look at the map when the game's done. I don't know. It's just another fun game that you can play pretty quickly. So
So that is Babylonia.
All right. Well, I'm going to move on to something a little newer than Ingenious and even Babylonia.
Oh.
I think it actually came out this year, at least in the U.S., just in the last couple months. MLEM Space Agency. MLEM?
Yeah, it's a
Think
cat
hairball.
Cats
in space.
Coughing up a furball.
Yeah, we're not talking about first rat.
No.
We're talking about
cats
in space.
Not bees, not space bees.
And bipedal, walking like humans, advanced space cats. Okay?
It's got to be an acronym, right? MLEM? MLEM? Like I can't. I think
it's
found anywhere that says
I don't
it's an
have
acronym.
cats, but To me, that's what I imagine the hairball coughing up sounds like.
I mean, I've had cats most of my life. And that is the sound.
Yeah.
When you wake up in the middle of the night and the cat's in the corner coughing up something, that's the sound.
Right. I don't know.
Just don't understand.
So anyway,
Tyson, give it up. It's fine. It's fine. Move on.
At the heart of this game, it is a push your luck game. Okay. It's really cool though, because each player selects a cat to put in this spaceship each round. And each round it's going to rotate who is the captain of the ship, who is the first cat, and then the other cats are placed in order. And each of the cats have special abilities. So some of them will let you score double points if it lands on a moon or the comet or a planet. So the spaceship's going to move up this track, and you're rolling 6 dice to start out. The captain will roll, and on the dice, there are 1, 2 2s, a 3, a 4, and an afterburner. And whatever space that the spaceship is currently on, it'll have 2 or 3 numbers by that space that has to be rolled to advance the spaceship. If those numbers aren't rolled, the spaceship crashes, and the cats potentially, the ship crashes.
You get the same cat token back. I don't know that you get the same cats back.
Yes, right.
Do you kill the cat?
No.
You're always trying to kill off animals.
I think, there's one that has a parachute ability, and even if the spaceship crashes,
then
it can land.
Which parachutes on there.
Which is why it makes me think that, yes, all the other cats die.
They have 9 lives, okay?
But
That's true.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, they have more lives. So it's a push your luck game. After the spaceship gets past the first 5 or 6 initial spots, each time it advances, the players have the choice of disembarking, leaving their cat on whatever location it's on. Also, each time you use a die or dice, they are then removed from the pool unless you use the afterburner. So the benefit of the afterburner is it goes back in. Not every space has an afterburner on it, though, so you could be on a 2 or 4 and roll 2 afterburners and you crash still. What's interesting is, so if the captain disembarks or gets off the ship, then the next person is now the person rolling and making the decisions. And if you roll something like the next person is the captain and would roll the dice if they decided to stay on. It's also interesting too, if you roll like 3 2s, you're going to advance 6 spaces, but now you have to use all 3 2s. You can't just pick one of them. So you're trying
out of the pool.
Yeah, you're taking it out of the pool. So you're trying to get as high as you can, as far as you can. There's different ways to score points on planets. There's some scoring goals for like first 3 on a single planet. There's a bonus points scoring goal for I think landing on 3 or 4 different planets. You have 8 cats. The game ends when the rocket crashes 11 times total, or somebody gets all 8 of their cats out onto the board. If you get it all the way to the top, there's a comet at the top, and obviously the higher you go, the more potential for points.
Whoever gets there first to planets gets more points. That type of thing.
Right. Yep. Yeah. I loved it. I've only played this on BGA. I don't have a physical copy. I don't think we have one in our group. We've started playing a number of games on BGA. I really enjoy it. It's a fun push your luck game with some interesting decisions. And I'm not a cat guy. I'm just not.
Yeah, right.
So the theme is like there's a planet that's like a ball of yarn. It's a ball of yarn, right? And it's kind of whimsical. The art's done by Joanna Rizpeka, and this is published by Rebel Studio. Yeah, what do you guys think about this? Kevin, you're just barely touched the surface on BGA. Tyson, you got a full game in. What's your take on it?
So I think one of my favorite things about this as a push your luck game is that you're all kind of in it together, right? Everybody files into the rocket ship and wants it to go as high as possible, but you want to make sure you're getting off at the right time because you want to get off and get points before it blows up, because it's most likely going to blow up.
Yeah.
But you want to also make sure that you didn't get off too early because somebody else could push their luck. I really love the mechanism of having a dice pool that is this dwindling dice pool, right? And the afterburners make it more interesting because, I can put stuff back in, but there are fewer and fewer locations where those afterburners can actually put it in. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of really interesting, fun things. And because every turn, basically, the captaincy switches from player to player, it gives everybody the chance to feel like they're in control of the push your luck. Yeah. And so you feel that kind of, it reminds me of Can't Stop, where in Can't Stop, sometimes you want somebody to roll and just bust when it's on their turn, and then you want to roll and be super lucky just like any other push your luck. But in this one, you also have the stake of being in the same ship as that person, so you kind of don't want them to bust too early.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have half a game under my belt, so not a whole lot of experience, but I do like the variable cap powers.
Yes.
Right? And you put those in the ship, double the value of something, parachute off to an island when you bust, or not to an island, to a planet when you bust or something. I think that's super interesting, right?
Yeah. I love the player ability or the cat abilities, and I think you can expand this pretty easy with some promo packs or a small expansion. One of them I love is like, if Tyson's the captain and you see that he puts the double comet points in there, which you have to get all the way to the top, you can play a cat that when you disembark, they have to discard a die from the available pool. And so you're
sabotaging them.
Yeah, a little bit, right? So, and that's really the only negative one, I think. It is, yeah. But it just adds enough of a decision there that's fun when you see that someone's going for big points. Really interesting. This is sold out pretty much everywhere, I think, right now. It is a fun little game. The art's beautiful. Like I said, cat space theme, awesome.
Yeah, I mean, this is one I think I will pick up, right? Because I love press your luck games. So we started playing Ink and Gold years and years ago, and we played the heck out of that game. That's pressure luck, and it's just so much fun. Yeah. There's Can't Stop, like you mentioned. There's a game called Spookies that I play. That's it's awesome. Your kid's going through a haunted house, and it's a pressure luck game, and my family absolutely loves that, and it's so much fun. This is right up their alley.
Wondersland's War also has some pressure luck in it, and
but it takes 3 hours, and it's horrible.
Whoa.
Oh, okay, no, it's not horrible. It's not horrible. Go back and listen to our review. Anyway, back to pressure luck games.
I will say that from a pressure luck standpoint, this is the sweet spot of playtime for me in a pressure luck game. Like, it's the perfect, and I know I'm not a huge fan of Quacks of Quedlinburg, which is a little bit more meaty of a press your luck game. And so this is more meaty than Can't Stop, but less meaty, I think, than Quacks, which none of those are necessarily meaty games by any stretch of the imagination.
It's a good sweet spot.
But it is a good sweet spot, I think. So
I don't think it's a surprise that this one's sold out everywhere. But you can play it on Board Game Arena. It's there's one thing about the implementation on BGA that drives me nuts. It auto scrolls. It's a very long and vertical board, and every time the dice get rolled, it auto scrolls, and it's not it's not accurate to where it's supposed to be scrolling. But when you're trying to see what dice are there, and I don't know, it's a little bit finicky for me.
Glitches on the mobile phone too, where it auto scrolls, and then if you have the rocket ship open to see what die pool is available, then it starts slamming the top of the screen, and then ultimately breaks it and crashes it. And I'm like, oh, well, that wasn't great. So.
I guess I'm not playing this now.
No, I do enjoy it though, and I could see picking this up, but it is really fun.
I agree. You mentioned the art in this one as being really good. Well, I want to talk about a Reiner Knizia game all about art. It is modern art. And the version that we played is the Mayfair Games edition of this. And I know there are a lot of versions of this game, and there are a lot of different ones that have different styles of art on it. I love the personality that is in the Mayfair Games version of this.
It's very retro, It's good.
It's not as good as MLEM art, But it's got its own quirkiness. Somewhere along the lines of how I feel about the Golden Ages in art style.
It's art that's so bad it's good.
Yeah.
This is
exactly.
2004 version of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
going back in time.
It is a product of the time period in which it was created, I think. But it's all about art. In this game, the object of the game is that you're trying to buy and sell artwork from one of 5 different artists. So every game, there are 5 different artists available, and they have different art with different degrees of availability. So some artists are more common than other artists. And essentially what you're trying to do is purchase the art and know how to auction off the artwork in a way that's going to maximize your profits. So you want to own the most expensive art because they're going to yield you points at the end of a round, but you also want to sell it to your co-auctioneers to get more money. One of the really interesting things about this game is that on the artwork cards themselves, so it's just a deck of cards essentially, and chips and a small board. So there's not much to this game in terms of components, but I feel like they've maximized that play space because each artwork card has a little picture of art, and as we already mentioned, it's not the most amazing looking art, but it is quirky in its own right. And on those cards, they also have symbols. One of 5 different symbols that signify the different types of auctions that will occur in this. So you have an open auction, a double auction, a sealed auction, a fixed price auction, and a once round auction. And these are all different styles of how an auction is going to play. So on your turn, essentially what you're going to do is you're going to place at usually one card in front of you to auction off. And depending on what symbol is on there is going to determine what type of auction is going to occur. So if you have an open auction symbol, that means that everybody at the table can bid on that, and there's no real order. It's just who says, and it goes until the auctioneer can go going, gone, or and once it's gone, the person who bid the highest bid gets that. You can also do what's called a double auction. It has a symbol of a double auction on it, and then you can put a second card down, and it's going to allow you to auction off 2 pieces of artwork at once, depending on what that second card symbol is. If it's a sealed auction, for example, that means that everybody does a blind bid auction for that one. Or there's the other 2 types of auctions in here. Fixed price auction just means that there is one price that will sell for this, and the first person to bid that gets that art. Or if it comes back to the auctioneer and nobody's paid for that, the auctioneer themselves have to pay for that to own that artwork. And the final one is a once around auction, and that essentially just goes so that every time a card is placed down with that symbol, everybody in clockwise order gets one chance to bid on it, and the highest bid at the end of that wins. The auctioneer who put that card down first gets the last shot at bidding for that one. So it's interesting because I've never seen a game, I don't think, that has so many different auction styles all meshed into one. Mm-hmm. And I would think that would just be a mess, just hearing about it. But the way that it works together, I think, seamlessly, and the different styles, it gives you so many different choices about how you're playing these combinations of cards to try and collect these sets of cards to create the most points. Because at the end of every round, there are only 3 artwork styles are going to be able to sell for any amount of money, depending on which ones have been collected the most around the table. So at the end of the round, you're going to sell them, and every round, that piece of art is going to increase in its value, essentially, depending on how many times it's been sold in previous rounds. I don't know. There's a lot of choices in this game. It's jam-packed with interesting decisions, and I just found myself, as we were playing it, just wanting to experience it again. And as soon as we were done, I was like, I could absolutely play that game immediately again, another 2 or 3 times, and just because I feel like different styles, and every time you're going to play it, it's going to unfold slightly different than the last time. I think it's a masterpiece of Reiner Knizia's games. One of my favorites that I think I've ever played of his, and I've only played it the one time so far.
Yeah, I think it's a great one. I've played this one a few times now. I played it a long time ago, and then we just got it out and played recently. It's got so much, like you mentioned, there's so many different types of auctions jammed into this game, and they all have a different feel about them. I love playing like the double auction card and then playing the next card that just sends it around the table one time so that you as the auctioneer have the last bid. You can see what, and it may be too high and you may not want to do it, but at least you're bidding that up, right? I love that when you're the auctioneer and somebody else wins the bid, you get the money as the auctioneer. I think that's a really cool mechanic. There's just so many things to think about in this game. I think it's one of Reiner Knizia's better games that he's designed for sure.
I love over the course of the round that the different type of auctions become more beneficial at that point in time, right? It adjusts a little bit as there's more art out and the round is getting close to finishing up, and it's like, okay, I now know what Tyson really wants. I'm going to do a fixed auction and put the price really high, and then he might bid it, or if he doesn't and Kevin passes as well, then, hey, guess what? I get this card too, and it's a valuable card. So,
or I get a bunch of money for it.
Right, yeah. So I had a lot of fun playing this too. It was my first play, and a fantastic auction game, right? There is a new reprint of it. Simon that did the reprint, I think. So that is available for like $24.
It's a no-brainer to pick up, I think.
Yeah,
you don't already have a copy.
Yeah, hopefully they have color printed rules. Your black and white, right. Someone's home printer rules.
It's one of those things where, I'm never going to get rid of that game because of the nostalgia.
It's part of its charm.
It's part of its charm.
Oh, totally.
And I absolutely I love the little cheap poker chips that it comes with. I just think it's fantastic.
It's 2004, but really it looks like it's 1980.
It does. Right.
But it does an awesome job with the different types of auctions, and it plays really well, and it plays quick, and it's a lot of fun.
It's interesting when you think about like Reiner Knizia auction games. We love Raw.
Absolutely.
And we've talked about Raw. We did a snapshot of Raw. This is another auction game, but it feels completely different from that one.
Absolutely.
And they're both fantastic games in their own right, but they do it differently, right? I think it's great.
I could play both of these back to back. I could play Raw and Modern Art and have fun just going back and forth between both of these games. I think they, like, if you feel like, oh, I can't own multiple auction games in my collection, there is no reason you can't own both of those games, I think. They both do great things and have different feels to them, but they, in their own right, are excellent.
I talked about the auction game Big Top from All Play 5 or 6 months ago on an episode, and one of the things I loved about that auction game was when someone wins your auction, they pay you, and I love that mechanic is in here. And, maybe that's where Big Top descended from a little bit, but who knows? I don't know. But it made me happy that was in this game. I really like that in auction games.
Have you guys played Medici before?
I haven't.
I haven't either. That's like, I think
that's
Modern
the
Art,
trifecta of auction games.
Yeah, right. And I think that one's getting a reprint. Actually, I've seen some
now we
news
just
about
need
that.
an auction night and do all three of them.
Right. That's what I want to play that one. I've heard about it forever. I think it's been out for a long time as well. Actually, I'm looking at BGG and it's 1995. So wow, that one's been around.
Predates
for a while.
Modern Art.
Right.
So what's the art style like on that one?
I don't know. I got to get an original copy of that one to see what it looks like, right? But definitely want to check out that one as well.
Yeah, so that's Modern Art.
All right, I'm going to talk about a 2-player game. This is Lost Cities, okay? It is published by Rio Grande Games. Had this one for a while as well. So Lost Cities is a fantastic game. I remember playing this one with my wife when we first got it. We both absolutely love it. So to play Lost Cities, you have expedition cards. You have investment cards, and they're in one of 5 colors. And they're numbered from 2 to 10. And the investment cards are these little handshake cards that you can play. So on your turn, so you get dealt a handful of cards. On your turn, you have to play a card, and you have to play a card to an expedition. When you start an expedition, you immediately start in the hole 20 points, and you got to dig yourself out of that hole to get to positive points. You can also put an investment card down that gets you even more in the hole, but could potentially give you a lot more points. So when you play an investment card, it will give you an additional, minus 20 points for that investment card. As you play cards to that expedition, you will chip away at that negative number until you get to 20. And then anything above 20 is going to be a positive number. If you've played investment cards, then it will multiply that number by the number of investment cards. So if you played 1, you'll multiply that number by 2. If you played 2 investment cards, you multiply it by 3. So there's a potential to get huge points from these investment cards, but it's a little bit risky. So you play, the first thing you do, you play a card to an expedition, then you draw a card. And you draw it to, you can either take it from the board, that it's a card that's previously been discarded to the board, or you can take it from the draw stack. You play like this back and forth, the 2-player, until the last card is drawn from the draw stack, and then you count up points. That's essentially the whole game. You play 3 rounds, and whoever has the most points after 3 rounds is the winner of the game. So it's one of those games that has a really simple rule set, like a lot of Reiner Knizia games like we've talked about, but it has some super hard and super interesting decisions. Like, do I play an investment card? Do I start way in the hole when I have maybe 10 or 12 points of that color in my hand? Or do I not do that? Do I discard a card to the middle of the board that I know that my opponent needs, but I can't get rid of anything else because I need those cards in my hand? There's just all kinds of interesting decisions to make in this game. I just think it's a fantastic 2-player game.
I think one of my favorite decisions about this game is, like you said, there's plenty of really great decisions to be made, but the decision of, do I draw from the draw pile? It's a shared draw pile. It's all face down. Obviously, you can draw from what's available on the board and you know what's there. But if you draw from the draw pile, you're hoping to get something that works in your hand. And one of my favorite things is there is enough space in your hand that you can sit there as an opponent and hold on to a card that you know that your counterpart desperately needs. Yeah. And so you're just sitting there holding it and watching them pull for that card over and over and over again. And you're like, but it's right there.
Yeah. And then they play the card that's one number higher, and then boom, you throw it out on the board.
Nice. The decisions are a lot of fun, though, and it's a good game. I'm glad you introduced me to it. We started playing on BGA. The first time I opened it up, I was like, holy cow, that's it? I mean, the rule set is
nothing. Yeah, it's really quick.
Yeah, and you destroyed me. And now we're in our second or third game.
And you're up of the first round.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
I feel like I have a chance this time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I don't know if I mentioned in the rules the kind of explanation, but you can put a card in an expedition, or you can put it out onto the board, right? Yeah. So there's that choice. So there's a lot to this game, a lot of meaty decisions to make and tough decisions to make. I think it's a great 2-player game. So if you're into 2-player games, it's definitely one you should check out. I think
Absolutely.
It's a no-brainer to pick up.
So I'm going to kind of tack on and follow on Lost Cities, in parentheses, the card game, with Lost Cities, the board game. I picked this up years ago, and it's been on my shelf of shame. It actually re-implements Celtis, which was the 2008 Spiel des Jahres winner, which re-implements Lost Cities. So this is like the grandson or granddaughter of Lost Cities, the card game. The artist is Annette Nora Cara. I think it was originally published by Rio Grande Games. I have the Cosmos copy of it. I played this the other night with my son. And basically, the main difference is, well, you can play up to 4 players. There are 5 tracks on the board, and they represent each of the different colors of the cards. Okay, and the cards they don't have the multiplier cards, but it's 1 through 10, and there's 2 of each card in each color. So you could play 2 ones potentially. But as you go up on these tracks, you get rewards. You can get victory points. You can hit a tile that lets you go up an additional spot. And then you also are collecting artifacts that score on an artifact track at the end of 3 rounds. That's your final scoring, in addition to the points you accumulated over the first 3 rounds. So same mechanic, though. You can play the same number or higher, but you can't play lower cards than you've already played in each color. One of your guys, I think he was called the Researcher. I could be wrong on that. He scores double points, but you only have 1 of those, and then you have 4 regular ones. So you, based on your hand and like how many greens you have, oh, I've got 5 greens in my hand, I'm going to put my double point guy on the green track, because and the first few steps on each track are negative points. They get gradually closer to 0. The last step on each track is worth 50 points. So you could potentially score 100 points if you get the Researcher all the way to the end of his track, whichever one you put that on. I liked this. I had fun playing it. It's not ranked as high as Lost Cities, but it was a fun time. And I think this is one that we'll try playing with my wife as well. It just plays quick, and it's got simple, easy decisions. And I think the benefit of it is, you can play with 3 or 4 players, whereas Lost Cities, the card game, is just 2 players. So had a great time. Logan destroyed me a few hundred points. It wasn't even close. I think part of that was luck, and part of it, he just played really well. So,
and you got to stop letting him beat you so much.
I know, right? Well, we're playing through Divinus right now, and I'm up 5 points after 7 games out of 12. So I'm holding my own for once.
Hey.
How's the Stalingrad campaign coming along?
We need to get back to that. I would love to play that anytime.
Okay, all right. He's beating you up on that one a little bit, right?
He was, but I've eliminated key parts of his army, like his snipers.
Are gone.
The snipers are all gone. So
okay.
I think he saw the writing on the wall that
so he's like,
the tides are turning. And
I don't want to
like,
keep this.
I don't want to. Oh, let's not play yet. I don't know.
That's funny. Cool.
Yeah, not really, but yeah, that's Lost Cities, the board game.
Got another Knizia game player.
Whoa.
Right?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Believe it?
Raw, the dice game. Okay. We talked about Raw. We talked about Raw a little bit in this episode already. This is Raw, the dice game. It's published by Rio Grande Games. This is Raw in dice form, right? Like when you play this game, it's like you're playing Raw. It has all the same elements. So you're trying to get pharaohs. You're trying
monuments.
Monuments. You're trying to sail down the Nile. You're trying to flood the Nile. You're trying to get civilizations. It's everything. So the way it works, it's a Yahtzee mechanic, right? So you roll the dice. Any suns that you roll go on the Raw track. Any monuments can be put on the monument track. It's kind of you're trying to get columns filled up with your cube. You're trying to get rows filled up with your cube, and there's certain things that you need. The more monuments you roll, the more cubes you can get out, and it's the same scoring mechanic as in normal Raw. It's like that scores at the end of the third epoch. For the civilizations, you're trying to roll a certain color of a civilization. A certain color civilization on the die. And, the onks that you roll are going to be wild. So you're trying to get those. If you get 1 there, you don't lose points. If you get 3, you get 5 points. If you get 4, 10. If you get all 5 in a round, you get 15 points. So same scoring as in normal Raw. If you can roll for disasters. So if you get more than 2 suns, you can get a disaster, which takes cubes off of your opponent's board, right? So you can destroy monuments off of one of your opponent's boards, or destroy civilizations, or take a flood cube off of the flood row, So it's that same type of thing. It plays over 3 epochs. Scoring is basically the same as normal Raw. You're going to get points for civilizations, points for who has the most pharaohs, points for the Nile.
Potential negative points.
You're going to move back a little bit. If you have the least amount of pharaohs, you're going to move up a little bit. If you have the most, you're going to move back a little bit. So there's a little bit of a catch-up mechanic there for the pharaohs. It's just very similar to normal Raw, but you're rolling dice instead. And I thought I think it's a fantastic game and a fantastic implementation of Raw.
And I think like any good dice game, it creates some shout out loud moments when you roll the dice and they go one way or the other for us, any of the players, right?
Yeah. So the game we played, you needed a certain roll at the end and you rolled exactly what you needed.
Yeah,
and it was
awesome.
like, that's amazing. That was so cool. And you barely squeaked out a win or something in that game that we played. So,
is there a situation you'd play this one over Raw?
I think just for a change of pace, right? I mean, I like it almost as much as I like normal Raw. I mean, it's got the same feel and it, like Tyler said, it's got a little bit of a push your luck element to it that maybe normal Raw doesn't have because you're rolling dice, right?
If you got somebody at the table that doesn't like auction games,
for sure,
then you're definitely going to play this one. If you're
that makes
going
sense.
to play one of them, it's a little simpler than what's going on in Raw, the auction game, right?
Yeah. It probably is a little bit lighter.
So maybe if you're playing with family members that might embrace a lighter game, then yeah, I would pick this.
Yeah, but I honestly, I think there's room for both of them in my collection, right? So I think it kind of scratches a different itch for me. And I think they're both a lot of fun. So,
yeah.
I like a lot. If you like dice games, then I think it's a great dice game.
Yeah, I would buy this if it came back into print.
Yeah, I would as well.
I think that we might hear something about that.
Yeah, right. Listen to the interview to maybe get some details about Raw, the dice game.
Oh, I think that's a good way to kind of transition. Now, I will say that we've only listened. We've discussed rather. Eight games in total. We talked about Raw, the auction game, but
I was going to talk about Tigris and Euphrates. I'll save that for another episode. That's one of my favorite Knizia games.
But even if you include that, that's like maybe 1%.
Yeah,
right?
fraction.
Maybe 1% of all of Reiner Knizia's game is what we've discussed here. So that's impressive.
Yeah. Tons of games we could talk about. We picked some of the ones that we played more recently, and I would love playing any of them again.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, he's a fantastic designer, and there's a reason he's designed as many games as he's designed because he does a fantastic job at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It comes back to what Kevin was saying earlier, that like the simple rule sets and the amount of depth to the decisions that you get out of his games make these easily accessible for large audiences and playable by people who play a lot of board games as well.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about Llama, and we joke about Llama all the time, where it has maybe 2 decisions, and it really has 2 decisions, but there are subtle nuances to the game as you play it more that kind of present themselves as you play the game more. That's a very basic example of that, but like the games we've talked about today have that. Like Ingenious has that. As you play it more, you see more unfold. As you play modern art more, I think the more we play that, the more we're going to get better at the auctions and see the intricacies in the auctions more.
Lost Cities is a perfect example of
Lost
that too,
Cities,
right?
Like Lost Cities, like extending the end of the game by not drawing from the draw stack and trying to time that. You don't see that the first time you play, but maybe the second or third time you play, you're like, oh, okay, I can time this perfectly where I can get rid of my last 10 as that draw stack, and you can see your opponent trying to drain the stack.
Yep.
You did that last game, and I got hosed, and I didn't get rid of my last 10 because I didn't do that well enough. But his games do that, and he's such a genius at designing those types of games. He's done, like we've talked about, 800 of them. So it's pretty amazing.
And he's won so many awards for his games. To say that he's had an influence on the board game hobby is an understatement.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
yep.
we had an absolute blast with the interview. So it was Kevin and I interviewing him, and it was, I don't know, it went by really fast. It was just so much fun. He's such an enjoyable guy to talk to, just down to earth. And it was so fun to hear some of the background on things. And so we hope you enjoy the interview. We're going to jump into that now.
All right, well, we are so happy to have our next guest on the show. And before we get started, I just have a quick story. It was about 18 years ago. My wife and I, we're going out to dinner. It took a while for us to get to our table, so we're like, oh, what can we do? So we went to a local game shop that was a few stores down from where we were at. And we didn't know games at the time, so we asked the store owner, hey, what's a good game? So he pulled out a game called Ingenious. We had never heard of this game before, and he said, this game is fantastic. So he sat us down, we played the game. It was fantastic. We took it home and kept on playing it, and I was so impressed by this game. The simplicity, the scoring, it was so unique. And that game was designed by Dr. Reiner Knizia, and we are so happy to have him on the show today. So thanks for joining, Dr. Knizia.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah. And I'm not the only one. There are so many people around the world that have found a love for games through games that you have designed. And if we've done our research right, you have designed over 700 games. Is that right?
In the meantime, it's 800. You need to improve your counting.
Oh, 800 games. That is incredible.
You see, it's very difficult how you count, because if I adapt a game for another market and they say we want some special cards in there and we want a board so that we can count, is that still the same game? Is it not a game? If I publish a game in a magazine, is that a proper game or is that just an orphaned? You can count anywhere between probably 700 and 900 games, whatever number you like. I'm currently saying 800.
Yeah, at any rate, it's a lot of games that you've designed, that is for sure. So where did you get your start? When did you start designing games?
You see, this is the fantastic point about our industry, that I think all the people who come into our industry come through the love of games. And I grew up in a very small town in southern Germany, and the only one who sold games was the barber. And he didn't have a great selection, and I didn't have lots of pocket money. So it started out very early. I just wanted to play, and there were fascinating themes. I wanted to play. I didn't find the game. I made it myself just to play with friends. I did never write up the rules, so these are like the ancient games about Ur. These are also lost in a way because I don't quite know how they played, and many of them I don't have anymore. But it was just done for fun, as kids do things.
Right.
And only much later became I more ambitious and said, okay, let's try to approach a publisher and let's try to get published. Getting published is something very different than creating a little game for your friends, which you can then adjust and adapt much better to the likings of a small group.
Yeah. So when did it become kind of a full-time thing for you and you were doing game design full-time?
In my 20s, I started to get more serious about games and sent some to the publishers and also approached some book publishers. And I published a play-by-mail magazine. You know, this is Stone Age, no emails yet, so it was a long time ago. But then I got a proper job. I studied at university. I got a proper job. I worked in banking, in finance, and in IT, and I had quite a high position there as a board member of a big financial institution in England at that time. And when I got 40. Or before I got 40, I took the decision that I will change my life and change my hobby and where my heart is into my life's mission. So I loved the other job as well, but I came to the conclusion I can only do one, and both of them were very successful, and taking the next step in the management would have probably cost me all my time there. And on the other hand, I never had enough time for the games, so it was well thought through for 1 or 2 years, and then when the right time came, I took the step. I've never regretted it. I mean, the other life was nice as well, but I think I found my mission here. And when I retired, which is not quite right, I had lots of times initially, and so I remember that I spent my first time I really worked on was Ra, but I'm jumping the gun, so it's quite a long time ago. But looking back, I am having a wonderful time with this decision, and I couldn't have done it better.
So you mentioned the first game you kind of worked on was Ra?
After my retirement, when I became a full-time designer, yes.
Oh, that's amazing. That's another game that early on in my gaming career, we played that game so much, and that's such a fun game. And at the podcast, we've been playing that one recently, and we've talked about that one quite a bit. That's a fantastic auction game. We love that one.
Yeah, it has a. I mean, if I may deviate, it actually has a wonderful story because I had a lot of time. So I started out with the idea of I want to see a big board, and it says a lot about game design how that goes. I wanted to start out with a big board, Egypt. I like history, and we had a little card game, and we played this 5-minute card game with different cards. And okay, this time I want to win some temple cards, or I want to win some city cards because I need to extend this temple, or I need to do some farming. So the little card game then gave you the opportunity to win cards, and then with these cards you could make placements on the board, and then we played the next card game. And it turned out this game took 4 hours, and it was too long, and so I had to say, what do I want to do? And I actually came to the conclusion that the little card game was the innovative part and not the big board. So I kicked away the big board, and then I said, okay, but then I need to lay out the cards, so I need to have more cards. Then the cards were too big, so I got to tiles, and you see we are meandering towards Ra.
Right.
And then I said, okay, but then when the Ra tiles come out, we need to be able to see how many. So I introduced a little board, and so you meander around. And this is the fascinating point when you do a free design. So when you're not commissioned to do a licensed game, because it's like children. I can talk about children because I don't have any. I have 800. But you cannot force children or games to grow into direction. You can only look at their potential and then guide them. And sometimes it's straightforward, and sometimes it's a big meandering path until the good game comes out. And I mean, I shouldn't say it about my own game, but I do love Ra, because you said it's an auction game. What I like about Ra is this innovation that you do not only bid for the good and valuable tiles in your civilization, you also bid for future bidding power.
Yes.
So, because whatever I bid with will then be auctioned next time together with the tiles. And if there is a very strong sun god in there, I might actually just bid for the sun god without even having any tiles.
Yep.
And so this takes the linearity out of this process, that you can calculate what is the tile worth and then do it. But you haven't even asked me about Ra, and I've already taken up half the time of the podcast, so I better shut up.
No, I love that. I love hearing the behind the scenes of how you designed that. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And I've been a lot of times in that game Ra, I've been in a bad spot because I have horrible sun tiles for the second or third epoch.
Yeah.
So that is definitely something that you have to think about. And it shows just a really smart game design. So that's super interesting to hear the background on that.
Yeah. Reiner, were there any designers early on that were an inspiration to you when you were just getting started?
I often get asked that, and the answer is actually no.
No.
Okay. Because the fascination was playing games.
Uh-huh.
And so I built my own ones, or whatever I could get, we would be playing. But it was more the games themselves. I didn't really follow the big designers at that time. I became friends very early with Alex Randolph.
Okay.
He is one of the not grandfathers, but grandfathers of gaming, of course. He did a lot for the culture of the games. But I've never had an idol, or whatever you say, or a mentor for that. And maybe that's also not bad, because you need to find your own way when you do an artistic and game design is a form of art expression, artistic job. So
absolutely.
Didn't happen to me. I found mentors in the business life, and that's very, very important there, but didn't really happen on the game side.
That's interesting, because, a lot of game designers take influences from other games, and you see those elements in their games. But it sounds like your designs kind of just came from you, and it makes a lot of what you do a little bit more unique in a way.
You see,
it seems like.
This is also, it has of course changed over time. I'm not the same designer as I was 10 or 20 or 30 years ago.
Sure.
But in the recent decades, I must almost say, I'm cursed by ideas. So the question, do you not run out of ideas, is not the point. The more I work on, the more ideas I have, and it's always the lack of time, the lack of energy, sometimes the lack of testers. We test almost every day. But to really move with these games and try to move them on. And therefore, whenever there is an opportunity, whenever I have some victims around me to play with me, then we would play my designs. And so that means I don't really play many of other people's games. That was very different in the early days, where I just wanted to play and didn't have many own designs. But I'm making out of this necessity a virtue, because what I have experienced is, and this is not only in game design, this is everywhere. If you look at how computers develop and how technology develops, somebody makes a breakthrough invention, and then everything goes in this direction because nobody else can think of anything else. Yes, maybe exception Steve Jobs rethought things and therefore had great success. But for me, game design is making a lot of decisions. How do I handle this situation? How do I resolve this? How do we distribute these resources? What happens there? And these decisions shape the overall game. It's gameplay is one decision after another, essentially, yes. And so I need to form these decisions and kind of shape them. What can people do in what way, the mechanisms. And many of these decisions, if I had a solution from somebody else, it is so hard to think of your one. If I don't know it, I come naturally up with my own invention. So I think this is a very important thing about creativity. If you know a solution, it is much harder to think of a new innovative solution. If you don't know one, the world is your oyster, and you find something.
Right.
Of course, sometimes my playtesters who play lots of other games behind my back, they would then say, oh, but you need to be careful, that has been used in this thing and so on. And then, of course, it's a pity, but I can't say, well, I invented it independently. Nobody cares. So there needs to be this control process also through the publishers, that I'm not inadvertently get close to another design just because I don't know it. But this is the process for me, and so I think every designer has to find their own style, trying to imitate someone. Getting inspired, yes, and seeing the rich world of what is there, and I'm not trying to shelter myself from what's going on in the world. You can't live on an island. You need to stay relevant. You need to see what goes on. But it's a matter of detail how far you go into the games.
So you mentioned that I think you said you're cursed with ideas all the time. You have ideas coming all the time. Where does that inspiration come from? Or where do all these ideas come from? Because 800 games later and you're still coming up with ideas. That's impressive.
Well, the world changes. And of course, the games are a mirror of our world. So, people have different interests. We have different movies. We have different contents in our life these days than we had 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So clearly, to stay relevant, it is keeping your eyes open and see what interests people and what do they want to do. And if you keep your eyes open, there is lots to see. And it's also, the main thing is, I think writer's block or creator's block only happens if you sit in front of an empty piece of paper and try to press out your first idea.
Right.
But as I'm working on these ideas, I say, oh, there's another idea. This could be a nice card game just with a little mechanism which I'm not using here. So essentially one builds on another, and it's also when I develop a certain type of game, then it kind of I have a very dense network of ideas in there, and they usually don't all fit into one game. So this is what people then interpret as this is my tiling trilogy, or this is this. This is not something I do in an aware fashion, but then I open, so to speak, a new drawer, a new set of ideas, a new set of mechanisms or something, and then usually more than one idea spark of that. You would in the end not even see that they had the same origin, because as I just explained on Ra, they meander in completely different directions, but you need a good starting point.
Yeah.
And an innovative starting point is always the best. It gives you the best chance to come out somewhere innovative. Yes.
Yeah, I've thought about designing a game, but it just, my brain does not work that way. And I know Tyler, you've thought about designing games as well, and
Yeah,
it's an interesting process. But yeah, I don't think most people's brains work like yours, Reiner.
You see,
that's
the point here is this is good, because what would the world be if we were all game designers?
Yeah, that's right.
What would the world be if we were all podcasters? What would the world be if we were all medical doctors? I mean, so people need to find their own calling, and I see certain things even in game design where I say I can't do it, and so it's not assuming I am strong in certain areas of game design that I certainly can do everything. This is the same as some publishers that say, oh, I'm strong in America, now I go to Europe and we'll just be strong again. It's a different world. It's not so easy to extend your homemade qualities into other areas. And you need to understand your restrictions and stay with what you do best, and maybe try out some other things, but also accept that if you ever claim to be a genius, then you're a very limited genius, yes.
Yeah, right.
We were playing Babylonia the other night, and one of the things we were talking about was how simple the rule set is in that game and in a lot of your games, but yet they offer such strategic gameplay. How do you approach that when you're designing games, balancing accessibility versus engaging decisions and strategy?
Yeah, I think people come from different backgrounds, as we just said, and I'm more the scientist. So that means I am trying, so that's how I see the world. I mean, I'm not doing this in an aware manner, but everybody sees the world different, yes? And a story writer sees the world different and elaborates on lots of details and has lots of little features in the game, and sometimes that is seen as very thematic, sometimes seen as more administrative. I'm the scientist. I'm trying to have some general and quite natural principles of play in my game. And so once you understand these, then everything else you can almost derive from this. But what I'm really trying to do is so have very simple, not simplistic, but very short rules, very clear, some rules which make the game deep, but the depth also comes from the other players. So what I'm really trying to do is create a platform and give each of us the opportunity to engage on this platform. But if I play the game with somebody else, things will happen very differently. Kevin, you mentioned Ingenious at the very start.
Yep.
And there are different types and different styles of playing Ingenious. You can just play and everybody tries to maximize their scores. Or you can see where is the other player weak and then say, okay, if I hinder him or her a little bit on that color, then this will do a much bigger impact than if I try to get a little bit more on my color. Yeah. And so these different styles are all embedded in the game, and people can just pick up the different directions, and so you have a different experience if you play with different people. And I think that's also the replayability of that. But simplicity is important for me. Some of my games, like Tigers and Euphrates, have very long rules, but that's a very complex game. That's certainly not a starter game. So I have my style, and some people like it, and some people like something else, and so not everybody has to like the same thing, and you cannot please everybody anyway. So that's what it is. Yes.
Right. You know, Reiner, I've gotten in trouble with my wife quite a few times by blocking off one of her colors in Ingenious. So that is definitely a strategy, and it adds extra depth to the game, which like you mentioned, which is great.
I realized the other night I should have blocked off Kevin's network in Babylonia. It was my first time playing. He had a few plays, and it didn't turn out well for me in the end. But just it's such interesting decisions in your games. And, from Raw, we played Raw, the dice game as well. I wish that was in print. Kevin's got an old copy of it, but I love how it captures the essence of Raw, but in a dice format. And that was just such a fun time to play.
If I'm correct, it will soon come into print again.
Oh, awesome.
And I have developed a single-player variant for that with different scenarios for the dice game.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's
So
great.
that will be included, but as I usually leave, or as I always leave, the marketing and the announcement when things will be released to the publishers, I do my job professionally, they do their job professionally, so this is all I can allude to.
That's great.
I saw on BGG, there's, I think, 13 or 14 games that are listed for you that haven't come out yet. How many games are you working on at any one given time?
I'm mad.
What's that?
I am mad.
Oh,
Out of my mind. Because
I was like, did I offend you? I'm sorry.
No, not bad in this sense. I'm crazy. Before the pandemic, I had 50 drawers, and I think that's well known. And in each drawer, there is an idea which is to be developed or to be tested. Through the pandemic, we couldn't test, so I gave myself the permission to buy another 50 drawers. And
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh.
But even the most crazy person cannot work on 100 games at the same time. So this is the curse of the ideas. If I look around and you see a few little, it's a podcast, but you see a few of the drawers in the background. And so these look at me every day and they're color-coded, what needs to be, in which phase they are. But realistically, I think I'm only working on a game if I play it at least once a week. So when people come and we play, our playtest sessions are usually 4 to 5 hours. Then we can play 3-4 games, depending on how big they are. We discuss a lot about them. Mm-hmm. And then with the next group, I would play some of them again, and maybe 1 or 2 new ones, depending on the number of players. So I'm strictly working on a game in this definition, maybe 5, 6, 7 games at a time.
Okay.
And then one gets stuck, and suddenly I discover it again in a drawer further behind and say, oh, I've worked on this as well. Why did I not do that? Because it's one of the dangers is to fall in love with a design, and then you have the sunk cost fallacy. I've spent so much time, it has to work. And the nice thing is to have more drawers than you can work on is that always those which are most promising come to the foreground, and they get played from day to day to day. And the thing which I'm stuck, I say, oh, okay, I need to think about that. And then, you don't have the time tomorrow. And then there are other games. And then suddenly 3 months later, you say, oh, I wanted to think about that. And so this is the natural evolution of these games. But of course, that also means that, smaller games are done quicker and bigger games are sometimes meandering and sometimes more straightforward. It's a matter of luck in a way how the game develops. And then, of course, when the games are finished, then we make final prototypes, wonderfully looking final prototypes, sometimes unaffordable, but it just needs to look fine for the publisher and impress them. And then we have, of course, a number of different designs which are finished and which we offer to the publishers. And then in the publisher pipeline is at least a year long. So if you license something, then it will not come. If you license something now, early in this year, it will not come out this year. That would be a very exception. So it will come out next year. And so the pipeline is relatively long. So there is many more in the pipeline than you can see on BGG, because many of them, like the raw dice game, have not been announced that they come out in the end.
Wow, that's crazy. That's a lot of games. 100 drawers. That's crazy.
Yes, this is a desperate thing, because I would really, when I have a design session tonight, a discussion with one of my English friends, because we spend a lot of time. I lived a long time in England, and we want to go through some of the designs. And I said, which drawers do I take out? And my heart bleeds because this one and this one. But I have invented something new for me, which I really enjoy and which is the highlight sometimes of my year, that every quarter I'm now picking 2 weeks and I go away.
Oh.
I go away, I'm in Munich, so I go away into the vicinity of Munich, an hour away somewhere, nice inspiring location, and I do nothing else but design.
Wow.
So I'm restoring myself from the games business, and is not only designing, it's a lot of other things, it's emails, it's this and this, but then I'm away for 2 weeks, and then I'm really only design, and I see how my heart opens up, and I'm an early bird anyway, but then I can't keep myself in bed. I get up at 2 o'clock and I design and design. When I come back after these 2 weeks, I'm completely exhausted and I need a holiday, because people think I go on a holiday, which is not the thing. But this means I can really focus on more, it's a big word, groundbreaking designs, and finish the designs off. Every quarter, 2 weeks is quite some time to spend with them and really push things forward, and then to test them again and so on. So that's something I invented the last 2 years, and I'm certainly, that's an enrichment of my life.
That is amazing. That's awesome.
So I'm sure that the game industry has changed a lot since you started designing games. How do you feel about the current state of the game industry? Maybe some good things or some bad things that are happening currently?
Well, there are many different influences in our industry. I mean, most recently through the pandemic, the whole supply chain situation, the discussions of whom do we want to be more dependent on, or do we want to be more locally producing? I mean, it goes into the political side, it goes into the reality of how is our world structured? Is globalization really the solution to everything, or are we locally sometimes a bit safer? So a lot of these influences are there and currently shifting the publishers' focus on how they produce games and how they do things. And of course that also influences us as designers a bit, because it has to do with lead times, it has to do with costs, how can you produce plastic if you don't go to China, for example, and so on. So there are quite a number of considerations with this, how do you get things onto the market. Also the pandemic had a very big demand for games, because people had to stay at home, so what do? You play games. And It's a funny thing, there are AI forecasts from some of the very big sellers how much demand there will be, and the AI of course looked at the situation and said, oh, there's big demand, we can't get enough stuff, and suddenly the situation changed, and then the AI said more, and then it was overproduced, and suddenly we had a big backlog in the industry with lots of overstock in the publishing warehouses, but also in the trade, and therefore suddenly we have a downturn because this needs to be sold off first, and there's a lot of capital which is bound as well in the warehouses. So that's probably not the answer you wanted to hear, but it's a big world with lots of different influences. What changes, and it changes what people are looking for, and then there is also ecology things. We want to do less plastic, so that influences what you put into the game. So I need to have an ear on all the things which go on in the world, because it influences the decision of the publishers. Of course, if we go a bit closer to the designing itself, people always ask, how does a new trend come up, and how do people create new brands? Brands become more and more important because there are so many novelties these days. How do you stand out? And if you have a strong brand, you do stand out because people recognize you. But my experience is, I'll insult a few marketing people. My experience is that marketing people make the greatest forecasts. They never turn out as they are. I'm painting black and white. But in hindsight, the marketing people always can explain why these things have been exactly like this. So I ask myself, if they know it in the hindsight, is this explanation really correct? Because you know the outcome, so you can always find a good explanation, but your explanations don't work into the future.
Right.
My experience with brand building in many cases is that publishers throw out 10, 15 games, see which one of that is successful and say, okay, we have a new brand. So this is more throw things in the air and see which one flies, and that's your strategic approach to brand creation, brand management. Trends, I actually think, are also vastly a matter of luck. In the same thing, when a certain genre of game becomes successful, suddenly everybody jumps onto this. I mean, one of the latest bandwagons is all these escape, exit games, which came from the physical engagement in these challenges, and suddenly they become successful, and everybody wants to be there. Yes, and so the trends make themselves through the initial successful games. We have the Brick Brothers, and we have the Trivial Pursuits, and suddenly we have all these trivia games and all these games. So the publishers usually just watch the market and follow the market. For me, that's a little bit of a bigger, and I'm not really doing justice to the publishers, so forgive me. For me, of course, I'm in the forefront of what happens, because when I create something that goes to the publishers, it comes out. And the really important point is to stay relevant, and that's how I started this long answer to your question, is to see what is relevant for people. What do they talk about? What do they want to be engaged with? And then put this into a game and put this on the table. But of course, then also to see what new things can I contribute to the industry. So how can I make a new mark? How can I set a new impression? Of course, I would like to set all the new trends, but there are many fantastic game designers around, and you have this process. And the second best then is to say, okay, there are certain great mechanisms or great features or great types of games. Can I not add something new to these? Like with Eldorado, simplify the deck building games, or My City, try to get something on the legacy side, which is very, very simple and really opens the door to many more people. Or do relaunches of games where we add something new to them. So it's a very chaotic world, and I think my answer was also very chaotic of what influences games. There is a marketing person can answer that much clearer, but I think the world isn't that clear.
Yeah, there's so many outside influences, so many things that influence game design. It's not just a straightforward process. So many outside factors. No, that's very interesting.
But maybe as a much more down to earth point to this one, I am not a publisher. I create innovative games. That's my ambition, and then I always need a partner, a professional publisher, who brings the game to life. And only the playing together of these two parties make a good game. If I don't start out with something good, the publisher can't make something good out of it. And if the publisher doesn't do a good job, then we don't have a good game either. And therefore, in a much more simplistic view is, of course, I'm in contact with the publishers. So you talk to the publishers, you talk to the people in the editorial department, but I also talk to the CEOs of the companies and say, where do you want to go strategically? What are you looking for? And so this is much more what's next, what's influenced. Sometimes it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, interestingly enough, Kevin, when you said Ingenious, when I initially designed Ingenious, people were saying, oh, abstract games don't sell. And then came Glockus and Ingenious, and suddenly these take off, and suddenly, these themes do not wear off. They can last forever. I mean, Ingenious has been around for a long time, and suddenly you set these trends again, as I say, through the success of a certain type of game, and then people build on it. So I think this answer was now long enough, so I warned you my answers would be long. So with this respect.
Oh, fantastic. I love it. It's funny you said Blockus. That's actually, we bought 2 games that night, and one of them was Ingenious.
See?
The other game was
See?
Blockus.
You were right at the forefront of the abstract games, which then had a great time.
Absolutely. That's great.
What's the most rewarding part about designing games?
I can answer that very clearly. It's bringing enjoyment to the people.
Okay.
This is our motto. This is on all our business cards. This is on our letterheads. And this is a very early insight. Why am I in this industry? I'm not in it for the money. I'm not in it for my ego. All of this will not lead you to success. The only thing that will lead you to success is design products and create something what people like. And we are in this fortunate situation. We are not creating washing powders or hand cream or mortgages, which I created once. This is not what people really want. But what people want is a good time. And the games, with our games, they have a personality. We really are in such a great, gifted environment that we can really use these to bring enjoyment to the people. And that's the biggest reward. That's having people enjoy the games, reaching the games reaching the people with the games.
Yeah, and it's that's why I love games. I think that's why everybody loves games, right? Is because you're playing with your friends, you're playing with your family, you're creating memories that you'll have forever, and you're sharing those experiences around a table together.
Exactly. And you get in trouble with your wife.
And some of those memories are better than others, but you're creating those experiences, and that game facilitates those experiences.
Yes.
And I know for me, a lot of your games have done that for me and my family, as well as other designers. And it's such an important thing. And I just want to thank you for providing those experiences for me. It's been amazing.
Yeah, I was thinking of we do a cabin con with our group of gamers every year, and in the very first one, there was a night, I think it was the first or second night, it was late at night, and there was a game of llama going on, and it was probably 11:30, 12 at night, and we were pretty loud, but it was, we still look back on that game and laugh about that, and just such a good experience. And, that was one of the memories that we created from that cabin getaway, which was awesome.
Very nice, because this is also an important point. You never know which of the games flies. I mean, Llama for me always was a nice, interesting game, but it has such a success, got nominated for the Game of the Year, and we sell it really in big quantities, and you reach a lot of people with it.
Yeah.
Who knows? And then you have another card game, and you say, okay, that's as interesting, I like it as much, and then it just is a pale appearance there. So it's a lot of. It's very difficult to explain what catches people, and that's the interesting part, because if you can calculate exactly, like in the movie industry, why are they called blockbusters? Because on the first release weekend, you see if people queue around the blocks, yes, and you never know. Yeah. And that's the same with the games, and that keeps it interesting, because I'm a mathematician, if I could calculate it, it would become boring, it would just become a job, and though it's an adventure.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping Llama Cadabra makes it over here sometime soon, or I might just order it from Amazon DE and pay extra for shipping.
No, it should actually, but it just came out now on the Nuremberg Toy Fair a few weeks ago. But okay. It's published by Amigo, and Amigo have their own subsidiary in the US, so it will certainly be there. I'm not sure if I have seen the English rules or only seen the German rules so far. So it may take a little bit of a time, but it will. I cannot speak for Amigo, but I would be extremely surprised if it would not make its way soon to America.
We're keeping our fingers crossed.
Is there one specific game that you would love to bring back to print that you haven't? Maybe do an anniversary edition or something.
That's a very good point. We have recently had big successes with relaunches of games. And my experience is these So we take a classic game, a game which was very popular in the 90s or 20 years ago or so, and has a good following, but then give it a bit of a new closing, put something new with it. So we keep the original gameplay, but we add maybe a second board on the back and so on. And this, when you go into crowdfunding, you can really do a very, very nice job of making fantastic pieces and really having. And I've been impressed with some of these productions. So we were talking about Ra came out with 25th Century. That was a marvelous edition. Even the basic, not basic, but the standard edition, and then the deluxe edition. And then also Zoo Vadis. I mean, it was Quo Vadis. Now it became Zoo Vadis with Bitewing. That was a big success, and it's also interesting because we tend to go on the side. We tend to go more and more towards animals because political correctness almost does not allow you anymore to put any people on the games because you can never be correct. And so we are eradicating us from the games and give the field to the animals. So in Zoo Vadis, we are now in a zoo and we have all the animals. Or look at MLEM, the game with the funny title. MLEM, I had it as Rocket, and it was astronauts flying to space, yes. And then Rebel said, well, we want to do cats. People like cats, and then we don't have any politically correctness problems. And it sparked something. I mean, this was not a relaunch now, yes, but it sparked something where you just need to have the right setting, either for a relaunch or for a new game, and make a wonderful. I mean, this is a wonderful production if you look at the Met which you lay out and so on. So it's a lot of fantastic things, but I haven't answered your question. I have put emphasis on seeing what of our strong brands or our classic games are available to put out. And the one which I'm most looking forward to, which is not announced yet, but I have really great hopes because it's a great publisher who does wonderful games. We will get Tigers and Traitors out again.
Oh, I would love that.
Really nice deluxe thing.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Tigers and Traitors has just dropped out of the top 100 in Board Game Geek. This was, for years, it was number one, so it was really standing up there. And I hope that the new edition will push it up again there, because I believe it belongs there, but I'm biased, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Give it a resurgence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there are so many opportunities to do nice things with Tigers and Traitors. We have a second board, we have some extras, and that's a relaunch I'm really looking forward to. That's one which I wanted to see out in a magnificent edition, and that's on its way. So I'm ahead of your question.
That was the one that I was hoping you were going to say. So I'm excited. I can't wait.
Love it. That's awesome.
We really appreciate your time. It's been an absolute highlight to speak with you and an honor. And thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to your next 800 games. and it's just been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. So thank you very much.
Yep. Thanks for joining. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure. And please take my apology for not being able to give short answers, because too many things come to my mind, and answers are sometimes not very simple. I'm not a marketing person, and therefore it's more looking at the different facets. Therefore, you probably didn't get all your questions in, but I hope you got at least a few answers of my confused mind.
No, loved it. It was great.
Yeah, absolutely. We loved it. Awesome. So that concludes our interview with Reiner Knizia. Hope you enjoyed.
Yep.
We've on the podcast interviewed David Thompson, Jumal Juju, Reiner Knizia.
Yep.
Let us know who you'd like for us to try and interview next.
Yeah, we're happy to reach out and see what we can set up. Yeah, anybody.
I mean, honestly, we didn't think that Reiner was going to come on our podcast, right?
No. I remember sending a message when I had reached out to his team, said, I don't know what'll come of this. And then lo and behold, we got an email back and he wanted to talk to us, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So who knows? Yeah. If there's anybody out there that you want us to chat with, we would love to reach out and see if we can do that.
I'd love to speak with Sid Saxon, but
well,
that one's harder.
There's certain limitations here, right? For sure. But
so should we jump into that was terrible. Should we
respect the dead, man?
Hey, he's my favorite designer. I mean, half the reason I'm a gamer is because of Acquire. So it was a joke, but
he has a lot of great games.
Yes.
Too.
Let's jump into what we're excited about. Do we have anything this week?
Yeah, I'll start. I've got one that I'm pretty excited about. I recently got an email from a Kickstarter message from one I had backed a while ago. And if you'll recall, this was one of the Kickstarters I waited the very longest for, Darwin's Journey. I got an email that said they're launching a new expansion for Darwin's Journey. And they're essentially going to add new map mechanisms, and it's going to be somewhat similar to the Fireland expansion. They're calling it the Oceania expansion. So I suspect it's got more to do with the ocean track and maybe finding more life in the sea and how that evolves than what we saw originally. So I'm excited about it. And as a kind of a bundle in this deal, they had like a special event kind of party that I think is still probably ongoing for a little while, where they're making a lot of discounts on a lot of their games and a lot of their products. And that's I posted a link for that in our Discord under the news section of our Discord. So if you wanted to check that out, you can find it there. But I'm really excited for more Darwin's Journey. I love that game.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that is a really good one.
We need to get it back to the table. It's
Agreed.
been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I've played it within the last 6 months, 4 months, something like that. But every time I play it, I think I need to play this game more because there's so much of it that there's a lot to explore in that game, and more content is always good.
Yeah.
Maybe they'd fix the seal sticking issue.
Yeah, the rubber.
Maybe in the expansion.
The like colors.
The like colors too.
I don't think they're adding more
Tyson?
seals. They're probably not adding more seals, so they're probably not going to do that.
Missed opportunity. They gotta fix that.
All those greens sticking together, right, Tyson?
You don't have to tell me twice.
Cool, that's exciting. We need to get the other expansion you have played.
The Fireland expansion, and I
Yeah,
think
we
there's
haven't
some
played that
other
yet.
stuff in there that I haven't played yet. Still, so
Sometimes a new Kickstarter or a new expansion kind of makes you play the game again in anticipation of it coming out, right? So I would love to get those expansions played because I think, we all love the game.
Yeah.
So let's do it.
yeah.
All right, I'll go next. I'm excited about a game called Daybreak. I've been playing this the past few days. It is designed by Matt Leacock. So Matt Leacock, for those who don't know, is a very good designer of cooperative games. Designed Pandemic and all the different iterations of Pandemic. Tyson's rolling his eyes. Hard, yes.
Not because he disagrees with Matt Leacock.
No, he's a
great
fantastic
designer.
designer. Absolutely.
Yes.
He's just not the biggest fan of.
Cooperative games in general,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
We all have our quirks.
More excited about Daybreak than I have been about any other cooperative game in a while.
It does things different, right? A little bit different. So it's a cooperative game about decarbonizing the planet. That's the theme of the game, right? You are working together to do that. So the thing that I do want to mention about this game and what I'm most excited about is the card play and how the cards work. And it's just really unique and really interesting. So there's a bunch of tags on the cards, and there's tags for a variety of different things. There's 3 things that you can do on your turn. So you either play a card, or you either take the action on the card, or you tuck a card behind just for the tag. And the interplay of the cards and when you're taking actions and you get more powerful actions as you get more tags is just super fascinating and super fun. So I've been having a ton of fun exploring it. I played with my wife last night. It's on BGA, which is fantastic. So we're really able to explore and dig into it on BGA, which is cool. We have a game currently going at the longest turn, which has been fun. I'm excited to get that one done.
I don't think we're going to do very well.
No, we're going to die.
No,
I have not won this game yet, so it's a difficult game.
That is a true mark of a Matt Leacock game.
Well, no, and I talked about this before, but I don't want an easy co-op, right? No. I want a co-op that when you win, that you're excited that you actually win, and a game that feels overwhelming that you like there's no way. Well, and this one's kind of like that because you have so many carbon cubes and the temperature's raising on the planet very quickly to start the game, but you work together to slow that down, and it's a very satisfying experience. So it's cool.
Well, and he does a good job at making his games thematic to the point where curing an incurable disease, decarbonizing the whole planet. Those are not easy feats, so they shouldn't come easily. I think that he does a good job at putting that pressure in games to make you feel like this might not be surmountable, but how can I make it work?
Yeah. So, I mean, we may have some more to say about this in the future, but it's what I'm excited about it now. I'm excited to get more plays of it.
Yeah, it is fun. So one of the games, one of the news today that came out that I was excited about is Unfathomable from the Abyss, an expansion for Unfathomable.
Say that 10 times fast.
Yeah, right. This is a semi-cooperative game that we've played and had a blast with.
Love it.
At a recent game night, I wanted to play this. The player count we had at the table slightly exceeded what Unfathomable does, so we played Shadows over Camelot instead.
Still a great game.
It was, but we didn't have a trader, which kind of
deflates it a
little bit. But so yeah, from Unfathomable from the Abyss, coming from Fantasy Flight Games. I think this is going to be out at the beginning of June. Adds a ton of stuff, new horrors. So there's going to be Shoggoth, the Drowned Spirit, the Grasping Tendril. Slightly different mechanics with those. Nice. New crew members, new cards. There's going to be new things called boons that are going to help you out more to do specific things. There are allies like the mechanic or the conspiracy theorist. And then there's also new prelude cards that will alter the setup or the start of the game, which I think looks really interesting. So
it's a lot to this one.
Lots of new content.
Is this new content, or is this taking some of like the expansions from?
I'm not sure. I wonder.
Battlestar Galactica, and then flipping that into this.
I wondered that. I didn't have time to do deep research, but I assume that there are some. I don't know if it's a 1-to-1, but I assume that there are things that they're borrowing from that and re-implementing it.
There is uniqueness to it, because Unfathomable had its own uniqueness to it.
It's a little bit different than Battlestar Galactica.
Okay. Yeah. I never played the original one, so but I have loved this one. It does have a lot of stuff. It's also not cheap. It's MSRP is $59.99.
Oh, for an expansion.
Yeah. So hopefully get this maybe around $35 or $40 from an online or local game store. So
awesome.
I'm excited about this. Like I said, we almost got this to the table, the base game to the table a couple weeks ago, and now I'm itching to play it even more. So that is Unfathomable from the Abyss. Nice. That is a hard word to say.
It is.
And yet you've said it about 12 times.
Unfathomable.
Nobody asked you to say it that many times.
Well, I mean, it's in the title, so.
What game did you just talk about?
Unfathomable.
Okay, that time you got
Unfathomable.
So, yeah, I mean, it's been a good episode, right?
Yeah.
I've enjoyed having Tyson back in the studio.
Mainly to make fun of, I assume.
Well, I was going to say, you've been mocking me quite a bit.
Yeah, that was the goal.
There's mutual mocking going on.
Yeah, I had to make sure that it wasn't a one-way street.
There was at one point when we were talking about how old some of these raw games, or some of these Reiner Knizia games are, that I bit my tongue about an age joke. But
the fact that you just brought it up means that you
basically
told an age joke, right?
So how was no one Sid Saxon, huh?
Because you're old.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I am old.
Good to have you back, Tyson.
Yeah.
Good to be back.
It's been fun.
It has been fun. This is
always fun talking about games.
Yeah, and any episode you can have Reiner Knizia on the episode is a win. That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll take that as a win for sure.
Yeah. Have we peaked? Maybe we peaked, right? Reiner Knizia on the show.
I thought you said, have we peed?
Have we?
I hope not.
But Tyler is old enough that it might be. Well, you both are old enough.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that modern art game as old as you are, Tyson?
I think so.
It looks like it could be.
2004? That's an insult.
So you didn't answer the question.
Yeah, I didn't think I had to.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I don't think we've peaked.
No,
but
we got
it
more
was definitely. I mean, the last two episodes, the two interviews that we did were just really cool moments. So hopefully the audience enjoyed it, and we're definitely going to be trying to do more of those in the future.
More awesome stuff to come. For sure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Longest Turn Board Gaming Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you want more Longest Turn in your life, please check us out on Instagram. Also, be sure to check us out on Board Game Geek, where you can join our guild, Guild 3947, and check out our blog, where we post all our show notes and occasionally post more detailed reviews. If that's not enough for you, we have a Discord server. If you want to play a game with us on Board Game Arena, join our Board Game Arena group, The Longest Turn. Until next time, thanks for listening.
Tot ziens.
Goodbye.
See you later.
Welcome to the longest. Nope.
Yeah, that was I don't know.
It was adventurous, is what it was.
It was something. I'll start.
Wait. We have a list.
I'll start.
Oh, wait a minute. That's right. I thought I was starting. Tyson, see, I screwed up a transition already.
Come on. We didn't even have a real transition yet.
I know. We transitioned from... anyway, go for it.
Maybe even in January or February. Well, that would be the last couple of months.
That is how the year works.
The calendar works. Yeah, we're going to strike that from the record. That might make the outtakes.
That better make the outtakes.
At your heart,
At my heart? At my heart, I can't take it.
Stop. At the heart, about a llama, raw. What else have we talked about?
Bonanza. Did we ever talk about Bonanza?
That's Uwe Rosenberg.
That is absolutely Uwe Rosenberg.
That's also a very good designer.
We haven't talked about Bonanza.
Yeah,
I don't know.
good. No, that's good. You can edit that into something.
Yeah, right? I think I said the word "the" earlier, like a half hour ago. Yeah.
Here is with the interview.
My voice is my password. Verify me.